let me just make it very clear why I think we're all here.
All right.
Okay, the purpose of we're all here is not necessarily because we're the best of the best. I wouldn't say, there's always people that are better than us.
Okay.
At least that's how I feel about myself. But I think we're just a group of people that all share a key important role in the home buying process. And here around the table, we have four groups. We have four people representing four different parts. First, we have the mortgage department, which is securing finance. Then we have title, then we have a realtor, which represents the actual acquiring the market, getting a copy of the house, and then the insurance, which is me. So the reason why we're here is because we'd like to just discuss with each other what's going on currently, our experiences, and what we have been seeing in the market since in the past year and a half, comparing it to how things are changing now, sharing with each other information. Hopefully, our goal is mainly that those that are going to be listening to this sometime in the future or currently now should gain something from it and learn something from all of our own perspectives and experiences. So we're just having a conversation. We're going to have a good time.
Yeah, and welcome. Thank you for joining us in this conversation.
Okay. So I think we had lunch or dinner, I don't know what you want to call it, before we came here, and Chevy, we missed you. We did save you some prime rib and all the good stuff. Yes. So maybe you'll enjoy that after. But while we were sitting and eating, we were talking about, okay, so how should we structure this? Like, who should go first and so on and so forth. So I think we said that we're gonna try to keep it according to the order of how people generally experience buying a house. And we said, okay, the first person that you need to really speak to is you need to know how much you could afford. So you got to talk to a guy like Mendy, because the first thing Mendy is going to do is Mendy is going to qualify you financially. And with that, you'll be able to go to your realtor, to Tami, and you'll be able to say, okay, I can afford this amount to buy a house. I need to be in this neighborhood. This is my criteria. Otherwise, you're shooting in the air, right? You're shooting in the wind. Then you can speak to the insurance agent and say, okay, I found the house. I have the closing date. We're all set for that. Part of the qualifications and requirements, I need insurance. Then Bayit Title, Chevy gets on the case and she's like, all right, don't worry, and you're going to tell us about your portion of the thing. So we figured that's how we're going to structure it. We're going to kind of walk you guys through the process. So Mendy.
Yes.
Our dear host, the guy with the most beautiful eyes. All right. The kid that is fearless and ready to do it all.
Yeah.
And just jump in, like,
yes.
Come on, do the Tony Robbins. Yes. All right.
Yeah.
All right, go for it, man.
All right. I want to just start by thanking everyone for joining us here. And a very special thank you to Hashem. That's where we get our real brachas from. Everything, we see it here in business, and when we're out to help another yid and a fellow human being to get his house, you see that there are things that happen that are higher than nature. When that thought comes into your head about buying a house, is me, because there's, what I'm going to do is take you, we're going to have a look at your finances. We're going to have a look at everything that it takes in order for you to get qualified. And we're going to look at what it is that you can afford. And the only thing that really matters is what's your monthly payment going to be like. And so we can help paint an accurate picture, exactly what the bank is going to see. And you will know exactly what you can afford. If it's a $300 $1,000 house, or a $500,000 house, or $1 million house, we'll be able to calculate all the various factors. So you go into the market knowing this is what is available to me, and then we go on to Tami.
Okay, so my job as a realtor sometimes is to get the client, obviously to get their wish list of all the things that they wish to have in the house, and get them down to realistic needs afford to have in a house, you know, to, basically, if you come to me with a price of what you can afford, that will take you to a specific area, to a specific kind of house, a specific size, and not everything that you're going to want is going to be in that house based on affordability. So sometimes clients are like, I need this, this, and that, and the other, and I have to say, well, it's not going to, you're not going to be able to get that, or that would be no problem. We'll be able to get all those things that you want. And then we assess the market, and, you know, my job is to do the research and to get as much of their wish list checked off, their checklist checked off, and see how we can negotiate and try to get them that house that they really want. Today's market has improved since COVID years. During COVID, houses were just selling like hotcakes.
What's it like now?
Okay, so now,
Like, are sellers getting asking, above asking, below asking?
So
How's that working
sellers-
out?
okay, so my experience in this market, and we have area, like my farm here, like, you know, where my expertise is, and like all my clients need to be within walking distance to a shul,
Mm.
a synagogue. So in my experience down in South Florida currently is that any home within walking distance to a shul, they're still very aggressive in their asking price. But right now, it's more negotiable than it was back during COVID times. So, you know, if there's a house, they're asking 6.25, you know, you have a little wiggle room there, and, you know, you can offer lower.
Do you see prices drop? Did you see prices drop at all in the kind of clientele that you're working? I mean, obviously, we know that real estate is local, so the way things work here in Boca or in this particular area which you're working in is different than it works in other areas.
Right, so, I mean, I work throughout Boca, so the homes near the three major shuls, you have Boca Jewish Center, Montoya Circle, and you have Young Israel, those have not gone down.
Dropped at all.
They're still very aggressive in their asking price. They've been on the market for a longer period of time. And so eventually they'll decrease their asking, but they start high, and then if it's still on the market after a couple months, they'll lower it.
Mendy, you're gonna have to chime in on this one, because with interest rates the way they are, how are people affording these prices? You'd think that with interest rates higher, the monthly payment is higher, so people can't afford the same amount, so that would force sellers to agree to a lower price.
Well, what I'm seeing right now in our South Florida market is that we have a lot of people moving from New York and California,
For them, it's a
selling their
discount,
homes in New
yeah.
York and California,
Ah,
Yeah,
and buying here, it's, you know, it's Mitzia.
yeah,
You know, you get land, you get a pool, you get,
yeah.
you know, a
For
big
a quarter the
house
price.
yeah, it's still
But-
less expensive from what they sold their 3-bedroom, 2-bath bungalow, you know, with no land and no driveway.
But
True.
back to the interest rate
So they might get
question,
big cash.
mm,
yeah. The interest rate question, my clients often ask me about this, like, what about the interest rate? You should never take the interest rate into your decision-making process about buying a house. You should take into account in consideration and calculation, but that should never stop you from buying your house or
So-
delay you from buying your house.
so what is the key? What should they consider?
The only question that you need to really ask is, when is now a good time to buy?
Okay, but let me ask you, devil's advocate, what do you mean that the interest rates don't matter? Doesn't that affect your monthly payment?
It does. But look, if the interest rates are temporary. You're not married to, you're married to the purchase price, but you date the rate. So like when the rates go down, you can always refinance.
Repeat that, you marriage to the purchase price, but you date the
The
rate.
rate.
That's a great line.
Exactly.
I've
Just
heard
wanna make
it.
sure people heard that. That was pretty good. You kind of just like swallowed that over. Come on, that was a pretty good line right there.
Yeah.
Did you make that up?
No, I heard it when I went to a
Oh my
conference,
gosh.
a mortgage conference. Hey, Mayor, thanks for joining.
Right, so somebody just asked the question, mortgage rates is not the problem, the insurance is the problem. Yes, we're gonna get to that, my dear friends. Not that I have an answer, but we definitely agree that definitely is one of the biggest problems right now. In fact, why don't we get to it right now?
Sure.
So I think for most people here in South Florida, the insurance payment is almost, if not more, than the principal interest on their monthly mortgage. Right? So like, for instance, I don't know, depending on the taxes, in some areas, taxes are pretty high. They could be, they could be pretty high. But in most parts, taxes are not that high. So I agree, yes, for many, the insurance is the biggest problem. It's true, it really is. So the only solution to this problem is that you want to pick a house that has all the maximum credits. So roof is number one. The roof needs to be within 20 years old. If not, you best try to find a way to renew that roof, replace that roof. Second is impact windows. Now, legislation and lawmakers know of this problem. The governor passed a bill which allows homeowners to get a grant or help from the state of Florida. And you can go on my Florida safehome.com, I think it is. What basically the government is doing is they're giving $2 for every $1 you spend. So if you're ready to put $5,000,
That's 825. Let's quick.
that's
825.
That's 15,000.
Quickly.
Let me just mute.
One second.
Hang on.
That's 825.
Oh, okay. Yes, Mayor, give me 1 minute. I'll answer.
Sorry about that. Sorry, I'm muting myself.
Yeah. You good, Mayor? Okay.
Guys, feel free to post your questions in the
Yeah,
comments.
Mayor just
Yeah.
posted a question. So I'm trying to address Mayor's question that there really is no solution. And right now, the problem, the only temporary solution right now is to harden the homes. How can we get the roofs to be newer? How can we get the windows to be impact? How can we get, because that's about 25 to 30%.
Is there a big difference between having like accordion shutters to hurricane impact windows?
No, great question. There is no difference. As long as the openings are impact resistant, you still get the credit. Absolutely. So what do you do? What do you do if you find a house in Hollywood that's built in the 70s, has an old roof,
No storm protection.
no storm protection, and you're as is buying the house for
A million.
close to $1 million or not $1 million.
Yeah.
So to do a new roof on a house like that, plus the impact windows, another 40 grand, let's just say. So what do you do? So maybe that's what people should be factoring into when they're buying a house. You're like, okay, I'm buying this house,
But I'm gonna have to.
but I'm gonna have to do this in order to be able to afford, because the fact is, these premiums are probably close to 10 grand in many cases.
Yeah.
They really are. I think the average premium right now is around 6,000.
Is there
Yeah,
a way that you can lower the content insurance to lessen the cost? Like, take a look at the,
There's another thing. That's not the only bad news. Before I answer that, there's two bad news with the insurance. The first is the price. The second is eligibility, which means you really don't even have options. Like, you don't have where to go. In other words, what I'm telling you is more bad news.
it's not an open market.
It's
when it
not an
comes-
open market. There's only citizens in many cases. Like
Yeah.
if this is a coastal property or within 5 miles from the coast, or even more, if it's in the Tri-County, Palm Beach, Dade, and Broward, if the home is more than 20 years old, it's only going to be citizen. And here's where it gets tricky. If the home, period. Yeah. Now, here's where it gets even more tricky. If the home is valued, now when I say value, I'm talking about replacement value, not market value. Because for instance, a 2,000 square foot home in Hollywood Lakes can cost $1 million, right? But it doesn't cost $1 million to rebuild it necessarily. Okay, it could cost $450,000 to rebuild it, right? So if the replacement cost, the amount it costs to rebuild the home exceeds $750,000, then even citizens won't accept it. So what do you do then? Right?
Right, but for like someone that's trying to buy their home for the first time, like what do you feel and what do you guys feel about, the biggest obstacles that home buyers face going into the idea of buying a home? Go for it, Tami.
Okay. So I deal with a lot of people from out of town, and
Yeah.
their number one concern right now, I think, is location and community. Because, I mean, and I'm just speaking for Boca, I don't know about really other communities, but here in Boca, everything is very scattered.
Mm.
So each development is pretty much its own neighborhood. And if there's no shul outside that neighborhood, they're pretty much not in walking distance to any shul.
Right.
But then you have the other communities that are near shuls, but which community is best for you? You know, which shul is best for you? Which one has the thing? Which one's closer to school? So that's currently my buyer's dilemma is like, which community do you want to just be stuck in living in a community near one shul? Do you want to be in a community where it's within 1 mile of 3 other shuls, but still walk, you're closer to one shul, but if you want to walk to the other shul, it's about 1 mile. You know, which, that's basically their biggest concern is which community is for them. It's not Miami Beach where you have a steeple in every corner, you have from people living every which way you
Right.
turn. You know, here you're pretty much stuck and married to the development that you move into until you're ready to move again.
Right.
What about you, Chevy?
So I don't deal with buyers' problems. When I meet them, they are happy. They just want to see the
Excited.
deal done. And
Yeah.
our job is to come in and make it as pleasant and as well done as possible. So I don't deal with the buyers beforehand, though sometimes occasionally I'll have a buyer or a seller call up and say, hey, what goes on with this? What should I expect? That's really Tammy's expertise.
Right.
So I'll leave that to Tammy.
Explain, please, the escrow and the prepaids on the closing statement. I have this issue with the insurance where people don't understand this, the mathematics. So like, wait a minute. I'm already paying on a monthly basis for the premium on my escrow, and you're asking for the full premium upfront by closing. So am I paying double? I'm paying twice?
Yeah.
Can you explain how that's calculated?
So I think that's a really good question, but before I explain that, I probably should explain what title is.
Sure.
Because
Yeah,
the
that's right.
majority of people say, wait, who are you?
Yeah.
Where do you come in? What's escrow? Forget escrow. What's the CD?
Yeah.
What's a closing? So really, I get this question all the time, and we'll get to that. But just to understand, so a title company is important, or an attorney, because we have to make sure that everything is done legally and properly from the very beginning throughout till the end, and then afterwards as well. Once you get into your front door and you have your new keys, it's not done. It's not done until we behind the scenes make sure everything is done. Everyone is paid. The insurance guy reaches out a month later. Hey, did you send out the payment? Of course we did. Let's double check. All this stuff needs to happen to make sure everything is done right. All the T's and the I's, everything has to be exactly correct. So our job is to make sure the legal aspects line up. And also we have to make sure that there is no problem on the property that you're buying.
Yeah.
So believe it or not, that really exists. It's really true. We have to make sure that it's a clear title, that when you buy that home, there's no other issues that you are inheriting because you paid $1 million and some dollars to buy the home. And just one example to really bring this home, because people sometimes say, what are you talking about? What's this lien? You know, can you explain it to me? So a lot of true stories have happened, and especially after COVID, when people during COVID, maybe we're still in COVID, but people were desperate to buy a home and get that home and get it done fast. And the market was going crazy all over the nation, all over the world. So here in Florida, people bought those homes without realizing the problems that they are stuck with. True story. Somebody comes to their mortgage guy and says, hey, I want to refinance 6 months after they bought their home. This mortgage guy who works with us, trusts us, sent us the deal, the transaction. We took a look at it. We ordered the title. That means we ordered all the searches that you need to make sure things are clear. What came back was this person, when he purchased the property, the attorneys who he was working with was so committed to getting the job done on time that they took a $36,000 lien and put it as an exception for this new owner. What that meant was, without telling this to the borrower, to the buyer, we pull the title, we see, oh, the old owner owed this amount of money on this property. Did you know? No idea. Nobody told him. He had no idea. We went back to the title company with the attorneys who worked with him, At the end of the day, a suit happened and the poor, attorneys probably might think twice before that would happen again. But the point is that these things are important details that cannot be overlooked. And our job as the title company is to make sure that is done with class, with ease, and that attention is done to every single detail.
Chevy, what is title insurance? I see it often on the CD, on the closing disclosure. What is title insurance? And
I
isn't,
see Yaakov likes the CD.
I do.
We're gonna really focus on the
Yes,
CD.
yeah,
Are you a mathematical guy by any
I
chance?
kind of am, and I always review the CD
That's good.
multiple times. Like I found mistakes on them and I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
I did too. I had a story.
Didn't I tell you to review yours?
Yes,
Because
yes.
I saw I was double charged, not because anybody maliciously wanted to double charge me. It's like, because there's two columns on the closing statement. One is closed outside, paid for outside of closing and paid at closing. So for instance, to hurry things up, I got the survey done by myself. So I ran to this office, I got this, I paid for it. So, yeah, whatever. My closing was a little bit different, the kids are, long story short, I saw it on the CD. I'm like, please take that off. Okay, I already
Yeah.
paid that $500.
Yeah, I want that when you're doing, when you're buying your home, number one, you have a team that you can trust. And right here on this table is a perfect example of a team that you can trust. You can trust that they have your best interest in mind, and they're going to do a very thorough job to make sure that you are very well represented on all ends.
It's true, you could trust, and I think everybody's intentions are good. However, you should still look for things on your own, meaning
Of course,
always
be
review the
your own
CD,
eyes.
ask
Oh,
questions about the
oh,
insurance
yeah.
policy,
it's an opportunity
ask
to be,
questions,
it's very,
educate yourself.
yeah, it's always very smart. When you're buying your first home, it's your biggest investment that you're gonna make in your life. The other ones, your second home and third home and fifth home, God willing, those are all good investments. But your most important one to your family is purchasing your own home for your family. And when you're doing that, you wanna be very well educated and very diligent when you're doing this, and always ask any questions that pop into your head.
So Yaakov, you asked what title is, what title policy?
Yeah, and title
So
insurance.
title
Yeah.
insurance.
And doesn't title insurance cover that scenario?
So no, all right. So
What does
what
title
title
insurance cover?
insurance is, it is the protection that you as the owner have to show that you are the free and clear owner of this property. Nobody can come along and say, oh, I'm really the owner. Look back in the past, because we are protecting the past, the history. Up until the day that you buy the house, this is what title insurance covers. Now,
Ah,
a lender's policy will cover the lender for the same
Right.
exact idea. It covers their ability to give the mortgage. They have the right to do that.
mortgage
So-
insurance.
Mortgage insurance.
Got it.
So,
So
now-
repeat that one more time. Title insurance covers.
it covers your right. It ensures your protection as the owner of the property.
That nobody can say later on, it's my property.
Nobody can say up to the day you bought it. What happens afterwards, you're not protected for.
What do you mean
It's
afterwards?
just from when you apply till you close.
Ah,
No. It's
Yeah.
from the day that this property was around.
Oh,
Till
wow.
the moment that you purchase that property, we are protecting that. Why in the story that I gave was that not the case? Because they had this attorney, read it over, saw that there was a lien, there was a problem that had to get paid. The buyer or the seller didn't want to deal with it, so he took it and put it as an exception. Every single title policy has the requirements that you must do in order to clear the title. If you can't deal with that as a title company, they will list it as an exception. Everything in the exception column is
Is not
not
covered.
protected,
Yeah.
is not covered, is not insured. So in this case, we had the buyer who was not insured for that lien because it was removed from the requirements, which he shouldn't have done, and it was put as an exception.
But-
A lot of times buyers have no idea what they're looking at. And like Mendy said, it's very important to have trust, to
Yeah.
trust that you can go back and you can ask the questions like, hey, I'm looking at the CD. Why is that number twice? We never worked together. If we worked together, I challenge you to find that.
I'm
because-
sure there wouldn't be, I'm sure.
God willing, Bezrat Hashem, it will not be.
Yeah. But,
Yeah, it was actually the same client that I talked about, Chevy, that her agent wanted to be her insurance agent as well. And I reviewed that policy. And I also felt that he did not have her best interest in mind and was trying to make an extra buck off, yeah, same person. And I have a feeling he was trying to make something off the title as well, had a back deal offer with the title. That's why it was inflated.
Want to jump in and
Yeah.
just say that when it comes to the pricing for title, it's very important to realize that there are two divisions within the charges for title. There's the
Yeah.
settlement fee. And in that case, you can ask upfront, hey, what is the price I can expect from your firm, from this title company for the job? You'll get that. And I will say that that will vary depending on who you speak to. For example, a closing I did recently, the attorneys charged their client $5,000 for the settlement fee. Your eyes are popping. True story. The realtor's eyes pop too. Right. You don't need a
don't.
lawyer in
You
Florida.
don't, you need a settlement agent that knows more than the lawyers do.
And the
Right.
second thing is the title policy. Now that people always say to me, but title costs are the same wherever I go in Florida, right? Wrong, incorrect, false.
Yeah.
They're not the same. The law is one fee that you definitely need to charge. But beyond that, people do not realize title companies or attorneys have the right to upcharge, and the client would never know the difference. I will tell you that Bayit Title, one of the things that we do is we try to honor your dollar the way we honor our dollar. We do not upcharge. We keep the title costs as they are.
Okay, so how do you do
everybody.
your pricing, Shevy? Do you have a fixed price or do you change it depending on the case, or how does that work?
Good question. I will tell you that the actual title cost is, like I said, promulgated. It's the law, and that we do not upcharge with. That is just dependent on the price of the property and whatever is going into that specific case. Our settlement fee changes based on the counties. We try to keep ourselves very competitive with what the rates are. We do not want to be the highest. We want to be just at that very low point where we're giving everyone a deal.
What does this word mean, closing costs? What is that?
Closing costs is a big word. It includes a lot of things. It includes settlement fee, recording costs, taxes, insurance, which you mentioned. I'll just address that now. It includes all of that as well. Now, the insurance and the escrow. So when you get a mortgage, so if you buy the property, whether it's commercial, residential, with cash, you don't really need escrow. You can choose to do what you want. You want to pay your own taxes, you want to pay your own insurance, you don't want insurance, that's fine, that's on you. But when you have a loan, the mortgages require, as a requirement, to have insurance. And in this case, they also require escrow. Escrow is a certain amount of funds that they will take from the closing costs, and they will say, we're going to put this on the side to cover insurance and to cover taxes for several months. And this way, there's always a backup.
Is there ever an exception to that requirement with the lenders?
Definitely, there are exceptions, as you probably know, but it's individual. It depends on what you speak to the
Case by
lender
case.
and what they can do for you.
Got it.
If the owner decides to discontinue with insurance after they bought the house, the lender will know, something that will trigger them and they'll explain to how.
I think I should answer that question.
Go ahead. It's a good question.
So let me repeat his question, because I don't know if the microphone was able to hear it. I'm gonna move it to the center. Your question was, if after closing you cancel your insurance policy, how does your lender know about it? Meaning, can you get away with it?
I don't know if that was the question.
That's what you're asking, like, can you get away with it, right? So I feel you, brother. And the truth is that when policies are written, what lenders ask for at closing is that they should be listed on the policy as lender's loss payee, which is just a fancy way of saying that the policy should have their name already endorsed, which means included in the policy. So in other words, the policy has members or participants. Let me just use a simple word. The participants are the lender is a participant because the insurance company recognizes that the lender has an interest on the property. Obviously, the buyer is a participant because it's their house, so it's their policy. And the insurance carrier is a participant because they're the ones that are actually insuring. So every notice that is sent by law has to be copied to all those participants. So the lender issues the notice, obviously, meaning the insurer, the carrier issues a notice and has to send it to the insured, which if there's two people, it would have to send it to both of them and would have to also copy the lender. So the lender already makes sure at the beginning, at closing, that any notice of cancellation, non-payment of premium, endorsements, which means additional premiums that may be required, all of that paperwork should all be sent to the bank's, correspondence, PO box. So that's the answer, that yes, they do get notified. And something that frustrates people a lot, going on to what you're saying, Beryl, is right after closing, a lot of times, and the loans are sold, right?
Yeah,
So what happens is there's a new servicing company.
yeah,
So for instance, Shell Point
Yeah.
will send you a notice saying, hey, we're servicing this loan.
yeah, it
right
happened to
now.
me 3 times in the 2 years since I bought.
Bingo. And it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Because what happens is the servicing company sometimes doesn't really pick up all the paperwork properly. So they'll start sending notices to the owner of the house saying, we don't have in our records that you have flood insurance. We don't have in our records that you have homeowners insurance. And you don't even know what you're receiving, because like you read those letters and maybe you don't even read them. You just don't understand what it is. You don't bother. There's too many words on the page. Just give me a bullet point, right? Why you give me such a long arichas? But the point is, the servicing company should have received the same file from the lender at the very beginning from closing, and that file should have been transferred over. A lot of times there's a miscommunication. So when those notices get sent out, a lot of times the agent themselves, they don't even know those notices were sent because they didn't get the notice. The notice was sent to the owner of the house.
Yeah,
And then if that notice is ignored, then you get something called forced placed insurance, which basically says, well, because we don't see that you have insurance, we're going to charge you, I don't know, X amount more in order for us to cover it on your behalf. So that's annoying, frustrating, and a lot of people get upset about those notices. There's no reason to get frustrated about those notices, because the moment that we uncover it and we just say, no, there was insurance, it's all null and void. If there was forced place, it gets removed. Even if it's years later. I had a client that for years had forced place flood insurance on his condo on Brickell. He had a condo in the 15th floor, okay? And the lender, the mortgage company, for 10 years, maybe it was 7, I don't remember exactly, but had forced place flood insurance because there was a notice sent and they were always ignored. You're gonna ask a question, why would an apartment, a condo need flood insurance, right? How am I gonna get flooded if my condo is all the way up in the 10th floor, right? It's a very logical question. So the answer is, if there is flooding in the foundation of a skyscraper, okay, that could deem the entire building by the fire department uninhabitable. So yes, a foot of water could possibly deem the entire building uninhabitable. At that point, the building loses all its value. If it's uninhabitable, it's no longer worth what it was worth. The lender looks at it and says, my collateral needs to be protected, so I need flood insurance, right? But wait, doesn't the association have flood insurance, right? Because buildings are owned by an association. The answer is yes, they do. So the easiest way to remedy that is you just contact the association and say, I need a copy of the policy. The policy on the flood insurance from the association says 2 things: building amount and the amount of units in that building. So you do the math. You do $1 million in premium in coverage for the dwelling, 100 units, 100,000 per apartment, right? So that's how the lenders look at it. It's like, oh, there's 100,000 for this unit. That's good enough for us. So I would dug back 7 or 8 years, maybe it was 10 years of proofs of insurance. He got a check for like $7,000 or something. I don't, the numbers I'm just kind of, I'm not being accurate on. The point is, these are the kinds of things that you need to speak with your agent. When you get paperwork and you don't understand it, take a text, snap a picture and send it to your agent. What does this mean? Sorry, I'm talking too much. Go ahead.
I have a question. Regarding the back window, earlier, a big piece, and then you don't have that.
It costs more, costs a lot more.
Your solution around this, a little bit to the question I asked before, to remove after you bought something. I'll tell you what I mean. Someone's telling me that they put a house, There was no impact windows, so they got hurricane shutters installed, except, the different kind of shutters, the shutters that actually, two parts to it, there's pieces that are put into the wall. Pins,
Panels.
and then there's the panels that get clipped
Yeah.
Onto the outside.
Now, when they come to inspect the house, they wanna see that you have the.
Anchors, the holes,
Yeah.
and that you have the panels.
And you have the panels.
And they have to be certified.
They have to be certified. This is a stamp.
Except here's the thing, the panels are portable. So it can always be returned. At a certain point. And you're basically, which is a huge expense, maybe I don't know exactly the breakdown, but. No, they're not really there, the constancy that the panels are with you.
Oh,
But then
okay,
you- But then
okay.
you take the risk if a hurricane comes.
1 minute, 1 minute.
they have a-
Let him finish his
Is that
question.
a legit, solution?
So I'm gonna repeat the question if I understood you correctly, okay? You're asking if, when an inspection was done, the panels were present and the anchors were in place, showing that the windows have adequate protection. And you get the credit. But then, after that happens, the panels are no longer there anymore. And do you still,
They're stolen.
they're stolen? Is there, okay. So the question should be asked in a different way. There's a hurricane, okay?
Yeah.
You got the credit, but now there's a hurricane. And you didn't cover those windows, right? A week before the hurricane was, like, there's a hurricane coming, cover those windows, you didn't do it, okay? So you left those windows uncovered, okay? And a hurricane came and a hurricane caused damage, it broke through the window. And you go ahead and file a claim. Is there grounds to deny your claim? Yes.
You didn't-
Well,
So you didn't
we
cover
gave
it.
you a credit
Or have-
for having the shutters. You didn't do your part, your due diligence of protecting the home.
That's a sign that if hurricane comes, the shutter will be put on.
It's in the agreement. You don't sign on it. It's written in the agreement.
Okay. I want to take a,
Fine, when and if it's a hurricane, we're not really planning for the real hurricane.
Right.
Yeah, whatever.
okay, so I just want to take a step back for a second. Like, we're talking about a lot of scenarios that happen after you have purchased the house.
Right.
I want to go take a step back to like when you're first looking at the house, and I want to talk about credit. Because that is one of the most important things that the banks are going to take into consideration when you take out your loan. And I've been working with credit for mortgages for over 10 years now. And a lot of people just take the credit, oh, I have a 640 score, that's what I have. And you never take your credit at face value. I mean, Yaakov, why don't you share the story when you bought your house?
When I bought my house, it was, I went into contract. I bought it from the bank. I bought it from Wells Fargo. And I had a 3-month closing.
That's good.
Literally took 3 months to close. It was before Cohen. I went into contract in August of 19 and I closed in mid-December of 19. I went into contract, I had a below 600 score. And within 45 days, well, right away, I got working on my credit immediately. Within about a month and a half, I was able to change that score and I ended up closing at an 800 score. Wow. 800.
Yeah.
And that's what, well, Mendy took care of that, okay? I don't know what he did, but he took care of it, everything worked out.
Yeah, it's very important that's like one of the first things to understand what's happening with your credit and what factors are impacting your credit.
Well, but can I just say something?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
difference does it make if I close with a 600 score, I close with an 800 score?
There's,
At the end of the day, if I close, I close, right?
well, yes, at the end of the day, what matters is that you close. However, if you have a 620 score, you may be able to close, but number one, your interest rate is going to be at least a 1.5 higher. So instead of getting a 6% rate, you'll get a 7.5% rate. Also, your mortgage insurance is going to be through the roof. I mean, we had a client,
Oh, mortgage insurance.
yeah.
Take a step back. What is that?
So mortgage insurance is something that the bank the bank makes you pay for their insurance if you're putting less than 20% down. So if you default, they get paid back, their loan.
Make it really stupid for me.
Okay.
20% of what? I'm
The
buying the
down
property
payment.
for $1 million.
Let's say you're buying for $1 million. If you put in $200,000, then you don't have to pay the mortgage
Oh,
insurance.
so in other words, they're lending more than 80%
Correct,
or up to 80%.
correct.
Got it. So if it's what, 15% you're putting down,
Still,
so then they're lending 85% value.
And you have to
correct.
pay
And you have to pay the PM.
And so PMI is mortgage insurance.
Correct.
Got it. Now, what's the other scenario? How does that have to do with your credit
Because
score?
there's the mortgage insurance, the main factor in your mortgage insurance that they're gonna take into account is your credit score. So if you have like a 640 score, which we just had a case like that, the PMI was
Oh, wait,
projected
my
to
ADD is
be.
kicking in.
Go ahead.
Keep it really simple.
All right,
If I'm putting down 30%,
yeah,
okay, on $1 million, I'm putting on 300,000.
Yeah,
But my
no-
credit score is 600.
yeah.
I still pay mortgage insurance?
No, but you still have, you don't get the best rate.
Okay, so mortgage insurance has only to do with the loan to value.
Yeah,
Got
only
it.
has to
Just want
do,
to add in also
Yeah.
that if you are going in with a spouse, the husband has 800, but the wife has a 620.
they're gonna go
guess
with the
what?
lower one.
They're
That's
going with
right.
the lower score.
That's right.
So
But there's a lot of things that can be done from when you, that's why it's important to come to me first. Before you reach out to Tami or your real estate agent. We're gonna have a look at your credit and we can dissect.
There's
your
another thing we
credit
didn't mention.
and figure out how can we best improve the credit before, by the time it comes for you to apply for that loan and go into contract, you will know that you have the best possible credit.
FHA,
Yeah.
what is that?
That's it's a government, it's a private and government program.
First-time buyers
for
program.
first time buyers.
Okay, what does FHA, what benefits do FHA give a first-time buyer?
You can put down less money,
How much?
like 3.5%. And also you can qualify with the 580 score. Any from 580 and up.
Okay, great. So then why wouldn't 3.5% seems conventional banks, do they allow you to put
You
only
could.
3.5%?
You could do conventional loans at 3.5%.
Okay,
But the disadvantage to FHA loans is that you are paying mortgage insurance for the life of the loan.
what do you mean life of the loan? How do you get out of it?
The only way to get out of it is either to sell your house or refinance.
Got it. And if it's a
Conventional.
conventional loan and you're still paying mortgage insurance, how do you get out of paying mortgage insurance?
So I'm about to do that right now on my house.
I can tell you what I did in my house.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same
It's the
thing. Go
same
ahead.
thing. Actually, I think you're the one that told me about this.
I told you what to do, right?
Exactly.
It's super simple.
It is.
You just have to prove that you've made capital improvements in the home and that the value has increased.
If it's after 2 years and the value just has
6
naturally
month
increased,
minimum, I think it is. 6 month minimum. I believe
I
it's
think
6 month.
I called my servicer and they said 2 years.
minimum.
6 month if you did major home renovations and home improvements.
Major,
But
the
it-
word major is a
Yeah.
relative term.
Right.
You have to just show that you've made some changes
Okay.
and your home qualifies for it is worth more than when you bought it.
Correct.
Yeah,
So let's say I bought my house for 444,000, and if I get it appraised today, it will get appraised for maybe 700,000. Make sense?
yeah. Or
So
650, yeah.
now it's less than my loan now is at 400,000, so I'm about,
Well, you didn't borrow 400,000 on 444. You probably
I
borrowed a little
borrowed
less
four,
than
I
that.
borrowed 420, but for my mortgage payments, I owe about 400,000 right now.
Bingo.
And
Exactly.
$300,000 in equity, and now I'm not at that 20% mark.
Exactly.
And so if I get another appraisal now, the bank is actually legally required to remove that mortgage insurance once I hit the 80%.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's the advantage of conventional over FHA.
Correct. If you had FHA, you would have to refinance that.
First time home buyers or if they're primary residents?
Both.
Both.
Or if they're-
Both.
Yeah, it has FHA is
Somebody
only,
Only
has
primary
a house
residents.
10 years ago and sold it.
2 years. You can go for another FHA,
Yeah.
I think.
You say first
It's
time
not
home
necessarily for
buyer,
first-time home buyers. You can get, but it's for primary residences.
Right.
prime residence, and
Yeah.
still the only home you own.
Correct.
Mhm.
And you have
I don't know if you can get FHA for your second home.
Can you?
I don't know.
Not second home. Can you sell the first home?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And then still get FHA again?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You have to wait 2 years.
That I don't know.
Yeah. I thought with FHA, you can, maybe not, you know. Yeah.
Most of my clients, besides for one, went for conventional loans, just because you have a lot more flexibility. Originally,
There's another
conventional
downside.
loans were 10% down requirements or 5% down requirements. And FHA went to 3.5%, and then conventional came and said, you know what? We'll do 3.5% too, and we'll be competitive in the market.
Okay, but wait, there's another advantage with FHA over conventional. FHA will typically give you prime, like lowest rate.
Yes,
You know, conventional will give, for instance, in today's market, what's the best
especially
rate
if
you
you
can
have
get?
poor credit, you'll get a great rate with
What's-
FHA.
FHA is that they'll only give you a home. They'll only lend you up to max 400.
Correct.
It depends on the area.
So if you're buying a home for 700, 800, it's not gonna help you much that FHA.
But, okay, let me just repeat what Beryl said. What Beryl said is that
Or why don't you
FHA
come
has
join,
a,
sir?
you can come join.
Yeah,
FHA has a limit how much you can buy a house or borrow.
yeah.
But Beryl, that depends on where. In
Depends.
California, for instance, FHA will go probably close to $1 million.
Well, here,
Yeah.
over the top. It's different prices. They won't go higher than 480.
Yeah, it goes by state. It doesn't
No,
go
it
by
goes
name.
by county.
Oh, it does? Yeah.
Yeah,
Ah, okay.
I just want to make also a point where a lot of
I may be wrong with that.
clients get a little confused with property tax. And they look at, they're looking at a home and they see, oh my gosh, these people only pay $2,000 in property tax. So they purchased their home in
Oh, yeah.
1990. And that's based off their purchase price when they purchased the home. So your property tax will no longer be $2,000 in the following year.
That is a very good
You
point.
have to base your new property tax off the assessed value of the purchase price.
Correct.
Yeah, so what Tami was telling us is that
I
what,
always say to estimate about 1.8%.
yeah, when you first get,
Over,
That's the millage. That's millage. It's different.
your first year's mortgage is gonna be less than the rest of the life of the loan of the mortgage. Because you're paying the taxes for that year throughout, for the year
Based
that
off
you
the
bought,
previous, right.
based on the previous year. But then comes 2024, they're gonna go look at your, gonna be big surprise, they're gonna look, they're gonna look at your purchase price and base the taxes based off that, and
It
so
also depends when you close, what time of the year you close.
it does.
well, you're prorated on your title
Always.
Yeah.
prorated.
of
Right.
how many months you're going to be living in the house. That's how much.
But it's a
per
good
month you're gonna
idea.
be paying for that year's property tax.
Yeah.
The following year, you're gonna get a nice new bill
Yeah,
of your new property taxes.
it's a good
With a
idea.
note from the lender
Yeah.
that says, oh, we didn't escrow enough
And
money.
that's why
Right.
they take
Your
extra
amount is gonna
escrow.
go up every month by $2,000. True story.
Let's say a $500,000 purchase. 1.8%.
You know what?
That's-
It's not based on the purchase price. It's based on the assessed value of the purchase price.
Well, the
So
good
you
news,
have somebody that is, and it's,
It's on
you
the
buy,
county
you
website.
purchase, right, it's on the county website.
Yeah,
I
there's a
don't
very
know
handy
exactly
tool-
How they
sorry.
do an assessed value of the, based on the market value. I have no idea how that works, but you can find it on the county website.
Yeah.
But a $500,000 house could be assessed at 380. So it's about 1.8% of that.
Yeah.
380.
Okay, so it's not follow.
well,
No, but I like to inform my clients that it's not going to be that 2,000, you are expect to be paying a lot more. In Florida, you get the homestead exemption, which is primary residence, you get the $50,000 off that assessed value, and then you pay taxes on that. And it's pretty much the same in Broward, Miami. and Palm Beach.
yeah,
They're a little more
what we do
expensive.
when you're ready to go into contract and you know what the house is gonna, the address of your future home. we would do, there's a very handy tool on the county on the county websites here in Florida, where you can not only see calculate what your taxes are, what the current taxes are, but you can also, based on your purchase price, estimate what your taxes will be in the upcoming year. So you'll know, well, an estimate, yeah, it's not
always
to the
accurate.
dollar, but you'll get a very good picture of, am I paying now, this year I'm paying 1,000 and next year I'm gonna have to, this year I'm paying 5,000 and next year I'm gonna have to pay 10,000.
Right,
You're gonna
and also the
know-
Calculation of a mortgage in South Florida where the homeowner associations are very popular, that they have to take that also into consideration. It can range
It
from
is.
a $0 HOA to $1,000 plus.
Correct, that the
HOA
banks
also
take that
needs to
into
be-
account in
right.
your front end debt to income ratios.
So that has to be part of the mortgage.
Correct, part of
Okay,
it.
okay, wait, everybody back out for a second. There's too many numbers and names and flying around.
Sometimes we geek out on the numbers. What?
So
It's
Palm
on
Beach,
the,
Dade and
yeah.
Broward, you just go on there's a
County.
tax estimator. Just look for tax estimator.
yeah,
There's a link there. It'll tell you folio number. So you copy and paste the folio number.
Yeah.
And it'll tell you purchase price and then you hit estimate and it'll give you an estimate.
yeah,
It's not 100% accurate, but it's close.
yeah.
Lenders are opposite that.
No,
No,
the
it's
lenders
not.
are looking at how much
They're
the
looking at the
current.
Yeah.
current property tax.
But it's just good,
And
it's good for you to,
It's up to an agent to tell their client
yeah,
that their property tax will rise in the following year.
But when the
The
estimate,
lenders do not say anything. They tell you
The
that your
lender-
taxes are $2,000.
the lender is approving based on,
the current,
This year's tax.
Yeah.
based on the types of earning this year, we want to prove you for your, how much you're gonna carry the house for, so that they're looking at.
So
Current-
actually,
current.
I'll
Okay.
jump in over here. The
Yeah.
lenders connect with the title company. The title person is legally responsible to present the taxes, the old tax certs and the taxes on the CD to the lender, who then analyzes it. Some lenders, not Mendy, but some lenders will come back and say, oh, we know it's gonna go up. Can you give us an accurate estimate? But a lot of lenders, not Mendy meaning you do that in a good way, but there are many lenders who don't notice.
Right.
And they won't ask that question,
And
so that the
and
client is stuck.
and the buyers are shocked.
yeah, come year
And they
two.
get a $10,000 property. Well, they only paid 3. Why am I getting a bill for 10?
Yeah.
Because they were not informed and they need to be informed.
Now's a better time, yes, to buy the house when you begin of the year, because you have to wait 9 months before that hits you.
Yes.
Where if you buy it at the end of the year, it may take you a month or two later to get that bill already.
Yes.
That's a good point. That's what you were mentioning before.
Yeah, but it does make a difference when. But one second, the other
We
thing,
can't hear you from
the
there.
other thing, bottom line,
Yeah.
keep it really simple.
Yeah.
Forget lender for a minute.
Okay.
What are the expenses of owning a home? Say you're buying it cash. Just break it down. What are the expenses of owning a home?
Buying a home or owning a home?
Buying and owning, yeah. So
Right.
I'm buying the property. Okay, so I'm paying the seller whatever he wants. What else are my expenses? You said taxes,
So you have
Yeah,
to.
yeah,
taxes,
sure.
insurance.
HOA or condo.
Oh,
fees.
so there's the purchase of the price of the home, the taxes and the insurance, and then HOA. What is HOA again?
It's a homeowners association. Every community or development has an association.
Okay,
It's a governed body of.
Is it a democratic?
Uh,
Is it a democracy-based system?
Depending, some are not strict, some are strict, some are inexpensive, some are very expensive. Some offer wonderful amenities and some don't, and they charge an arm and a leg. So you have to know that upfront, what your
Yeah.
HOA, what your condo fees are, what's included. Sometimes it includes lawn care. Sometimes they have clubhouses, pools, tennis courts, golf, and then are the country clubs, which is a whole other.
right, so the homeowner association or HOA or condo fees, however you want to call it, is basically there is a shared space that all the members of that neighborhood or that association share. So there could be roads, there could be, if it's in a building, an apartment, like a condominium building, there could be hallways. So that space is owned as a collective. So the collective forms an entity, a non-for-profit organization filed with the state. That collective,
President, vice president. or
correct,
treasurer.
that collective has,
Mini government.
it's a mini government, bingo. Or a corporation. It's a corporation, and the corporation is non-for-profit. It files with the state and has guidelines under the Florida statutes. Correct, and they vote and they have elections and they have people that are, and they cannot get compensation either, so the president, vice president, treasurer, it's all volunteer work, bottom line. So the expenses that the association has to pay as a collective is paid for by the maintenance, the HOA maintenance. Okay, so now when you bring in a lender, the lender takes into consideration
HOA
the
fees.
principal in the servicing of the loan, right? Because you got to pay the monthly fee. When can you afford the home? So the question is, how much is the principal for the month, which means Karen, principal,
Yeah.
interest, it's a monthly payment.
Yeah.
Then taxes
Well,
or
PMI,
escrow.
Insurance.
PMI if needed.
If there's PMI, which is the mortgage insurance,
And
that's
it's
included in your
included
monthly
insurance,
payments.
Yeah.
Taxes and insurance, which is escrowed. And then
HOA.
HOA,
yeah.
all of those things are calculated in what your monthly expenses are. And you
On
can go
the-
online and do a mortgage calculator and calculate all by yourself.
You could do a basic one online, or you could do a thorough one with me,
Right.
but that's called pity in short, or PDI, or if you want to include the association. But that's one thing to take into account where that's called the front end debt to income ratio, where you look at your housing expenses, and the banks typically want to see no greater than 50% of your income, of your gross income, going into the debt to income ratio on the front end. But you have the back end as well, so they look at your credit report and they see, you have a car loan of 700 and a credit card bill of 1,000, and they calculate all that into your back end ratio, and those numbers need to make sense in order
Okay,
for you to get approved.
so we're coming up to an hour already,
All right,
and we want to be respectful of everybody's time.
sure.
So we could do a
Well,
little quick
everyone's so
summary
good.
of what we spoke about, and maybe if there's something that, like you maybe. you
There
wanna
was a
say.
question
Yeah.
that came up. From,
Do you want to do another dance now? You want to stop? and
yeah,
sing
we
another
could do
thank you
that.
song? Okay, so let's go. For it. Let's do a little dance.
So,
Sure.
while you're looking that up, I'm gonna take this second because everyone's
Yeah.
time is valuable to let you know that in Florida, there is the ability when it comes to title to grant a discount. It's from the government, but the buyer has to be aware, or the owner, that you have to receive your prior title policy. I can't tell you how many times I have people who've come to me who said, I heard there's a Florida discount. Do we qualify? Guess what? They do qualify. Why? Because the purchase or the mortgage they took out had to have been the last 3 years. However, if they never received that title policy from the title company that they were working with, which happens all the time, they will not qualify for the several $1,000 discount that we could give to a lot of clients if they showed us their prior title policy.
What do I do?
Did you know about that?
No, and what do I do
See,
right
it's
now?
You didn't know about it? And
No.
you've been a realtor here for many
So
years.
what do I do
This
right
is
now?
a crime to any buyer in Florida.
How
or
do
any
I get
owner.
my hands on that policy? What do you mean?
So if you're gonna refinance, so let's just start like this. Whenever you purchase a house, whether it's with cash or you get a mortgage, you get a policy. We talked about
Yeah.
that, the owner's policy.
Yeah,
If you get a refinance, if you take out a mortgage, you have a lender's policy. Let's just say within the next 3 years, you decide to refinance
Yeah.
or you decide to sell your home. The new person who's buying the home or getting that new mortgage in the refinance can take the previous title policy, present it to their new title company or their old title company and say, hey, can I get the Florida discount?
Can I get that policy
What's
in
the-
an email or do I get it in the
You
mail?
can
How does
get
it
it,
work?
so we at Bayit Title, we give out, we mail a hard copy to all of our clients within the week of closing. I know that's unique. I know that because many people have come to me saying, can I get that discount?
you're
And
saying
unfortunately, I
that-
can't give it.
That, like what Mendy was saying, how now the interest rates are not very high, but they're on the higher end. And you're not
Well, if you look at-
married, you're married to your house, but you're dating your interest.
right.
But if you choose to refinance in 3 years, when interest rates go lower, you can get your
Discount.
discount
Yeah,
towards closing costs.
correct.
Towards
So
Tara's
like, if you want to
policy.
refinance your house in 3 years, what should they expect in closing costs? Not from origination side, but from like the closing costs
So it
side.
depends on the price of the loan.
Okay,
Or the
percentages,
price.
or
is-
there isn't, let's
there
say $1
really
million
isn't a way to
house,
Do it because it depends on how much they paid in principal. We
right?
have to calculate all of that. I can't just, for every case is completely different. Sometimes it catches people by surprise. That
Right.
They're taking out $1 million loan or whatever it is, a jumbo loan. And they're actually not paying that much in policy costs
Right.
because of the discounts provided to them. Based on when the last, when they took out the original policy. We have to kind of balance all that with our calculator and figure that out. So reach out to me for a free quote. I'm always happy to give that out
It's
anytime.
amazing.
If it's okay, can we talk about that insurance escrow thing? It
Sure.
frustrates so many of my clients. I try to explain it as best as I could.
Let me hear how you explain it. I'll tell you if I
Okay,
can.
so this is how I
do
explain
that.
it. When you close, the bank, the lender wants that the full upcoming year should be fully paid, prepaid, okay? When you get your first mortgage bill, you're paying, let's just say 1/12 of that. By the time you finish making the 12 payments, you've already collected enough in escrow so that when that policy term expires and is ready for renew, there is enough money in that escrow account to pay the following year.
Reserves.
Reserves,
How much
Go higher.
reserves?
exactly.
How much
You
reserves?
said
are
that so
collected?
beautifully.
Yeah.
What more to explain?
Yeah.
Wait, there is more to explain, because let's say you close on the 15th of November. Well, what are we at now? We're in February. Let's say you close in March 1st. When should you expect your first mortgage bill?
So that comes 2 months later.
2
But
months.
because of that.
So which means you'll get it, let's say you get it in April, so when would it be due? May 1st? Let's say it's due May
2
1st.
months after.
Bingo. The title person, which is you, Chevy, you calculate on the prepaids of the of the CD, those 2 months, which means that's also included in your closing costs.
100%.
So you're actually paying, if you want to use factors, 120% of your annual premium, you're paying on the first day of closing.
So I-
Because,
yeah,
because you're paying, well, I don't know if it's 20%, because 2 months out of the year is not 20%, but whatever that factor is. Two of 12 plus the full 12 months you're paying upfront at closing. So then when May 1st comes, you're paying the next month until the next renewal of the premium, which would say if it was March 1st, it'll be March 1st of 2023. So then there's enough money in escrow to pay for the following premium. That's why you pay double.
so I'll just say 2 things to that. Number one, there always needs to be this escrow, this account for reserves for a rainy day, and it's usually 2 months, sometimes it's 3 months. And a second point is it's based on the lender. The lender is the one who comes to the title company and says, here's what we need. This is our requirement. We just have to honor that.
Got
And they
it.
reassess every year, so not every year your escrow is gonna remain the same.
Right. And another thing is, when are property taxes
And you
due?
also may reach out to your processor
Property
to,
taxes
It's
amend-
due when?
The latest April,
So there.
When are they
yes,
assessed?
November.
November.
The bill will
So
come in
the
November.
escrow analysis is usually done around October. That's usually around the time when you get it.
yeah,
You get, because you get this is not a bill.
No, it's not a bill.
it's an
No.
estimate.
You get an estimate with that non-valorem, ad valorem.
Ad valorem,
Get that in September.
September.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So,
it
so,
gives you a heads up, this is how much you're going to have to pay.
correct. So I think the lenders do an escrow analysis around that time, around November. So when you get that in the mail, it says, here's your escrow analysis, and a lot of times it comes with instructions how to read it, right? And when if you read the escrow analysis, it's basically saying, okay, well, we paid in the past 12 months such and such. We anticipate for the next 12 months to pay such and such. Therefore, we A, need to cover a deficiency, and B, prepare for the upcoming months. That's where a lot of times I get a call. Why the hell is my premium so damaged?
Conference.
Right?
For you.
You can also, you can also not escrow you. They drive me nuts as escrows. They also made me so nervous, and I chose
To go off
to
escrow.
waive my escrow. So I paid my property tax and insurance, thank God. I can pay it up front, but you have capabilities of doing installment payments, I think 4 payments for property taxes, and you can pay monthly for your insurance directly to the insurance company.
It's true. But not
But not
everybody,
in the beginning when you, no.
I think you also need to be credit worthy for that. I think
For what?
for going off escrow, I think it goes on your credit worthiness. Like if you have an 800 score, yeah, you'll probably get that. That wouldn't be an issue. But if I think it's a case by case. It's a case by case. I, as an insurance agent, love it when it's escrowed.
Yeah.
Because
it's-
then it's just the checks
yeah.
keep coming in,
Yeah.
baby. Month after
Yeah.
month, it just keeps coming in. Who gave you permission to renew my policy, right? You ever hear, did you ever make that phone call? I never said I wanted to renew my policy. You can't cash that check.
Now we call you saying, thank you for renewing my policy.
Yeah,
Especially now, that people are moving to New York and they're used to customs away for beer.
Attorneys versus non-attorneys, let's just say it.
Highlight just so many differences. And, Florida, I'm very familiar with Florida, the way it's going, and you have these New Yorkers, they're like, I must have an attorney. Attorney, like, I don't know, I'm attorneys, I mean, have an attorney. Yeah, as far as, well, it's good enough as an attorney. So that obviously, and what else we look at, and also the contract, we put in an offer, that in terms of their contract, and it's like in New York, they have it consistent where you can't put an offer on a house, you have to actually sign a contract. before it's accepted.
So I cannot speak for New York.
Yeah.
I come from Philadelphia,
I can't speak for New York.
but I will tell you,
I could answer that
Oh,
question,
go
very, the first part of your question about the title attorney. If there is a more diligent way to have your title done, and that's with Chevy, she's more diligent than title attorneys. A lot of times, she's telling the title attorneys, the corrections that they have missed because they haphazardly went through the documents.
yeah, so just to speak to that for a moment. So as a title agent, we are licensed in all the legal aspects of conducting the entire closing from beginning to end. And like I said, even afterwards. And what happens in that case is people don't realize, people assume like, oh, coming from New York, I had this question, I asked my attorney, who am I going to turn to over here? And I tried explaining to some other people that any question you have regarding your transaction, we are licensed to answer because we are licensed to handle it. So in most transactions, and this is 99% of transactions, an attorney is actually not needed at all for the process. If an attorney might be needed, say they want someone to review a contract, that's not what we're going to do. We can bring an attorney on, we can bring on legal counsel. But the reason we function like this is so that we have expertise, we're experienced in what we can do the best job we can, and we can say what that is.
I think in
Yeah.
Florida, the contracts here, it's as a standard.
Very
contract,
standardized.
Like the same for everybody. It's
Yeah.
used as is contract.
Yeah.
And it's just very,
And
Yeah.
what goes on in New York with contracts?
I have no idea.
I don't know.
Those contracts look very different.
They're different contracts.
They're very surprised.
We-
when it comes
we
out.
had a
Like,
question-
lawyer needed? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, so here in Florida, the title company handles the escrow. In New York, I know that the title company does not handle the escrow. There's an escrow company. There's another,
Yeah.
we handle that all. From the moment you sign that contract, the contract comes into our inbox, we take it from there. We're in touch with the buyers, the sellers, the realtors, the lenders, the hazard insurance, the homeowners insurance, all the legal aspects, the cities, depending on what the liens are in that case. We're in touch with everything and we hold everyone's hand, buyer, seller, to make sure it's done properly
Like the quarterback.
legally.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, except you don't get concussions.
Not
Hopefully
all the
we
time.
don't. Thank God.
The one that shoots is the county, the buyer and the seller.
Exactly.
And there's a reason why one wants to choose their own title.
They have a relationship
Yeah.
with them.
So
Yeah.
the other side doesn't feel the same trust in that title company. They may want to review things,
Sure.
not because title company cannot handle it, or only because they want somebody that's more
Representing them.
representing them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Catch things that,
Sure.
that overlook the things that.
Sure.
But, I mean, I look at everything for my clients.
Mhm.
When I represent the buyer, I'm constantly looking at their documents that they send in and the HUD sheets, and I'm always looking everything over for them, and
Right, you look out for that,
Look out for
even
that.
though that the seller chose title. And but you're gonna make sure that the buyer. Of course. That's right.
Look, I hear that, and that's true. I once had a transaction where we had the buyer, the seller, two realtors, the title company, and the seller's attorney. It's all under one umbrella. Can you imagine? Like, who was
Yeah.
getting ditched in that situation?
The
Everybody.
client.
Nobody cared about the individual interests of the buyer. So I get that. you know, you do want to make sure someone is looking out for you. I will say at Bayit Title, I don't know, I can't speak for any other firms. Our job is to make sure we are giving 100% clear title to the buyer. And if it means holding that seller's hand, getting rid of $2 million of liens, which by the way, we see all the time, we do that. Because at the end of the day, we need to make sure that our buyer is getting that clear title. And so even if we're not representing the seller, we will force the attorneys to do what they need to do to make sure the $2 million liens are closed. And that's, yeah. Absolutely. We do
Yeah.
residential, commercial, we work with investors. Absolutely. We do double closings as well. Yes.
I want to bring up a question from Shoshana. She asked, are all areas with HOAs? And the answer is no, not every area has HOAs. There are benefits and drawbacks to HOAs. Some of the benefits are that, you know, you have a gated community, or you can, not necessarily, you may have a gated community. You may have rules that all the neighbors have to keep, so that way the community stays safer.
They are much
Yeah,
nicer,
the-
they're maintained.
Yeah,
As opposed to a non-HOA, you can do whatever you want,
Yeah,
your
you-
could be falling apart, your paint could be coming off.
Yeah.
You can have a RV, a mobile home in your driveway, and it just doesn't look.
yep. And the other question that Shana asked is, if you own homes in multiple states, do you pay all states taxes on all the properties? And yes. Well,
And you can only have one homestead,
yes, one homestead.
believe it or not.
Yeah.
for primary residence.
I'm not sure if I fully understand the question. Does it mean that you have to pay New York tax on your Florida properties?
You pay your Florida tax.
We're
on
talking
your
about property
On the
property,
property,
You pay your
the New
New York
York
tax
property
on
tax
your
and New York
properties.
properties, right?
And any exemption you might have is based on, like you said, the primary residence.
Right.
Where's that located?
And you have to prove primary residence if you have a
Yeah.
job here,
When should you file for your homestead exemption?
January 1st through March, January through March
Yeah.
of the following year to get.
So the first
following-
January.
First January from when you move in, yeah.
So if somebody's is gonna close in March now, when should they file? Next year?
I think I filed that same year,
You can
right
file
away,
here,
as
but
soon
it
as I
won't
closed.
be- But yeah, well, you can file beforehand, but you have until.
March
they-
31st.
So March
31st
31st.
to get, because you get your taxes, so that will be applied to the November.
But I think they didn't,
That's
have- they, I closed on February 25th of 2021. And I applied for homestead right away,
You
and
got it for 2022.
I got it only from 2022.
Well, you pay property taxes in arrears.
That's right.
Right. Okay.
So,
Oh, you pay in arrears. So in other words, in April, you're paying what? 2022's taxes,
Last year's,
last
Oh,
year's.
okay.
November, they send you the notice or it gets assessed
but it's from the previous year.
and you're paying the previous year. So wait, let's say you close, I don't know, today, tomorrow, in February. So you're calculating the taxes based off of last year, which is the previous owner. And you're gonna file your exemption right away, but that's not gonna be, is that gonna affect your 2023 taxes? Or is that gonna be for your 2024 taxes?
2023, as long as you close before March 31st.
Ah.
I have a quick question for round the table, everyone here. Like in the 80-20 rule, what's 80% of your job description? You know, and the 80% of what you do in 20%, what's the 80-20 rule? Like, what's most of your job description? Like for me, most of my job description is like support for my clients, like helping them understand their credit, helping them make that leap of faith in themselves and in Hashem to go into contract, get ready as prepared as they can. And you know, a lot of times there's self-doubt that comes in, and is it the right thing? Is this gonna go through? You know, and there's a lot of yes, you can do it, but you know, backed up with the facts, backed up with the numbers, backed up with the relationships with the banks, and knowing exactly what's going on. You know, we can help conquer a lot of those fears by just, you know, listening to your heart, listening to your gut, and knowing that I have your back when it comes to the facts of getting you approved. And a lot of it is, after they've gone to contract and, I think Yaakov was asking me yesterday, what's the big, earlier today, what's the biggest, what's the hardest part of the mortgage process? The hardest part for the client, and I answered him is wiring that EMD, wiring that deposit to the thing.
Earnest deposit
The
money,
earnest deposit money.
EDM.
That's your hardest part.
No, because it's the client's hardest part. Because once they've sent that deposit, you've decided in your heart and your mind and every party being, yes, I'm doing this, no matter what comes my way, this house is mine.
I would say that means you're very caring lender, very caring, because I would think that might be the realtor's hardest part.
It
Yeah.
could be, it's all of our jobs, I guess.
I don't know, I think 80% of what I do is educate.
Yeah,
That's at least the way I look at it. My job is what I'm here to do is to make your decision-making easier.
Yeah.
You're making the decision, I'm only here to help you. And I'm here to help you by giving you the information. And I try to be very upfront from the very beginning. I don't sugarcoat it. I say it the way it is. How much is it gonna cost me? I did this the other day. Somebody bought an investment property, Airbnb. He's like, how much is it gonna cost me to insure the Airbnb? I said 10 grand. So comes to closing, blah, blah, blah. My office quotes it. And my office tells me, you gotta call this guy because I don't know, I sent him the quotes, I discussed it with him, everything is good, but he doesn't seem to believe me. So I'm like, what's the problem? Let me look it over. I'm looking it over and I'm like, everything looks okay. Like you did everything the way you're supposed to. I said, buddy, I called him up, lady, what's up? He's like, you told me it's gonna cost me 10 grand to insure my house. How is the quote I got is 3,000. Is that normal? I'm like, yeah, it looks good. I mean, you know what, you want to pay 10 grand? That's what I was budgeting for. Like now this deal actually makes sense. I'm making more money on the deal.
Right.
I'm like, well, I'm glad to hear. I always try to give the worst news at the beginning. Right away, like, yeah, it's terrible. How bad is it? Oh, you don't want to even know. Yes, yes.
That's interesting. Yeah, how about you, Tami?
Yeah, education, just determining which community, they've never been here. I speak to out of town people all the time, just discussing each shul, each community, each hashkafa, each neighborhood, and what their expectations are, and their kids, where they're going to school, how old are they, and then research, and then finally showing, and for them to view it. I sometimes go and I FaceTime them, or sometimes I come to town and come along, and then it's paperwork.
How about you,
And then they
Shevy?
get them as just a.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Yes.
I would say 80% of my job is communication, both with Hashem
Yeah.
and with everyone else, the buyers, the sellers, the realtors, the lenders, you name it, communication. And somehow
key.
we try our best. We place our trust in Hashem and God. And I literally see his incredible love and hand in every aspect.
And
Yeah.
it falls into place.
Yeah, I agree. I think
Guys,
communication
we
is your most
yeah.
important thing. I know, I've worked with other title people, and when they're good communicators, it's so much easier.
Oh, it's so smoother. It's
Yeah,
so
they
you
respond.
relax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
Absolutely.
And certain title agents will wait to the last minute to get the last things done at closings. It's important to be ahead of the game when it comes to the title and the insurance.
Yeah, I don't like to bring my whip out.
No,
No, I don't.
And sometimes I
A borrower should never feel like they're up against the wall and they have to do something today or else. We should always try to be proactive about and prepared for what's necessary, know the next step that's coming up, and that ensures like a really smooth, calm, easy process for the client and for everybody involved. Yes.
We all like that.
We love that.
Special shout out to you, Mendy, for bringing this
Oh,
all
yeah.
together.
Yeah.
The host.
I think we should
Yeah.
go to dance.
Creativity.
Okay, we could do that.
Yeah, and yes, I'll second that. Really, thank you, Mendy.
It's my
because
pleasure.
this was a lot of fun.
It was.
this was a
really nice.
podcast.
Yeah,
We just spoke.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yay.
That's
It's the beginning of a new thing.
Yeah,
All right, let's do that.
yeah. So,
You ready?
I want to just bring this analogy that when you're buying a house, it's very similar to like when you're finding your shidduch. When you're looking for your soulmate, before you're even born, there's a baskol that comes out and says who you're gonna marry. And when you're going out and you're dating, you know, when it's the one, Hashem wants it to be. And the same thing is when you're buying a house. Hashem wants you to be able to feel, to bring that security and stability and build a home for your family. And so sometimes we just need to listen to
You're a real romantic.
it. It's a beautiful process when you're buying a home here and you have a beautiful team here.